Affairs, the Cabinet Secretary for Cooperatives and Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises are lined up for appearance before the Senate. That is the Senate chambers already, of course, preparations ongoing. We can see the Sergeant at Arms, of course, at the stand where the cabinet secretaries will be standing as they respond to these concerns. That is the entrance to the chambers. Members are, of course, making their way inside in preparation for this morning business that is lined up for consideration or to be transacted. And the Cabinet Secretary for Cooperatives and Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises, Wycliffe Ambetsa Oparanya, who is already within the precincts of Parliament, will be responding to questions by the Honorable Senator for Migori County, Senator Eddie Okech. These questions regard the Kenya Cooperatives Creameries, KCC, and the Senator would be seeking from the Cabinet Secretary to explain the failure by the former KCC and now by the new KCC, that is the Kenya Cooperative Creameries, to pay terminal dues to former employees of KCC whose contracts were terminated in the year 1999. On the same breath, the Cabinet Secretary will be required to explain when the affected former employees can expect to receive their terminal dues, as well as the Cabinet Secretary to indicate whether the former employees have received payment for the cooperative society shares they held as at the time of their exit from KCC, and if not, provide reasons for the same. The Cabinet Secretary for Cooperatives and Micro and Small and Medium Enterprises Development, Wycliffe Ambetsa Oparanya, who is already within the precincts of Parliament and is expected to be ushered into the chambers once the House commences its business. The time allocated for the plenary sitting is 9:30. It's now 9:33. Members are still making their way into the chambers. And of course, in a short while, we shall be seeing the procession of the Speaker. And once the Speaker makes his way into the chamber, the prayer will be said. And at the time when the chair is taken, if the House has attained its quorum, that is at least 15 senators, if they will be seated inside the chambers after the chair is taken, then the House will, without any further delay, commence its business. However, if that quorum is not present, of course, we have seen members making their way into the chambers. We hope that they have raised that quorum already. If not, then a quorum bell will be rung for more members to be able to get into the chambers and raise the quorum. That is the Speaker of the Senate, Honorable Amason Jeffa Kingi, who has just made his way into the chambers. He will be presiding over this morning's sitting. Allow me to hand you over to this live broadcast brought to you by PBU in partnership with KBC. Good morning.
Mwenyezi Mungu, tukusihi tutazame kwa neema nyingi na baraka. Sisi watumishi wako ambao umeridhika kutuitwa kwa nyadhifa za uongozi katika jamhuri hii yetu. Tutakuomba utuwajalie tuyatende na kufikia mambo yote atakayofikishwa mbele yetu kwa njia ya haki na uaminifu, ili kustawisha amani, ufanisi na heri ya nchi yetu na wale ambao haja zao umezikabidhi mikononi mwetu. Amen. Clerk, do we have quorum? Sergeant at Arms, kindly ring the quorum bell for 10 minutes.
Well, the prayer has been said and the chair taken. However, as indicated, the quorum has not been raised yet. A quorum bell is currently underway. This is, of course, to just alert the members who may be within the precincts of Parliament, but yet to make their way to the chambers to do just that and enable the House raised that required quorum, at least 15. Can see Honorable Senator Miraj has just made her way into the chamber. At least 15 senators should be seated. After the prayer is said and the chair taken, if that is not present, then a quorum bell will be rung for sort of an allowance for that particular quorum to be raised. And as we wait for the quorum to be raised, we shall go back to the business that the members will be transacting. This morning, as provided for in the House Standing Order 51-6, paragraph 1, a cabinet secretary shall appear in person on the day which the respective question is listed for a response. This morning, cabinet secretaries are expected to appear. As you can see, there is a stand right in front of the chamber where the cabinet secretary will be standing or taking their positions to respond to questions. Once the quorum is achieved, I will just hand over. And the quorum has been achieved. Allow me to hand you over the broadcast.
07 and 042. One by Senator Eddie Okech, the other one by Senator Veronica Maina. Those two questions are directed to the CS in charge of cooperatives. Today we're going to have the Prime Cabinet Secretary and the CS in charge of cooperatives. Those are the two CSs who will be with us during this particular session. Clerk, kindly usher in the Prime Cabinet Secretary, please. Let's proceed as that is being done by reading the first order. Proceed.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair. Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions. Order number 5, papers. Order number 6, notices of motion. Order number 7, questions and statements.
Question 002 is by Senator Eddie, but he's not present. I'm informed by Senator Beatrice Ogola that she will be asking that question on behalf of Senator Eddie, having duly been instructed to do so. So once the Prime Cabinet Secretary takes his place, I will be asking Senator Beatrice Ogola to proceed to ask that question on behalf of Senator Eddie. Yes, you may proceed.
I thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, just for clarification, I don't know why he came in thinking that the CS for Treasury was also supposed to be here to respond to a question that I had asked.
Yes, we had anticipated, and indeed we expected the CS in charge of Treasury to be present today for purposes of responding to questions from honorable members. However, pursuant to a letter that the CS wrote, that letter was deliberated upon during the Senate Business Committee in its sitting yesterday. The CS is not in the country, and he sought to be to attend some other time because he was not going to be able to appear before the Senate today for purposes of responding to those questions. The reason that he gave was found to be sufficient, and therefore the committee acceded to the request. He will be appearing next Wednesday for purposes of responding to your question and other questions asked by honorable senators. And that is why those questions are not contained in today's order paper. Is any senator holding brief for Senator Veronica Maina? Good. Okay. I cannot see the Honorable Senator from Marsabit County, the Honorable Mohammed Chute. Is there any senator holding brief for Senator Mohammed Chute? Yes, but we need to be persuaded that you have full instructions from the Honorable Senator by producing written.
Honorable Speaker, he said that he's almost arriving, so if he doesn't come, then we'll help him.
Well,
called
the
him.
Prime Cabinet Secretary is already in the House. We cannot keep the Prime Cabinet Secretary. Now, honorable members, you know this session starts at exactly 9:30. Now, if you remember my communication yesterday, I indicated that any honorable senator who has business listed in the order paper must be present to prosecute the business. And if you're not present, then that business will be dropped. It is extremely embarrassing to have the Prime Cabinet Secretary seated ready to respond to questions. And Honorable Senator for Lamu, we are not in Sambarazan, deep in Lamu. We are in the Senate plenary. It is extremely embarrassing that the Prime Cabinet Secretary made himself available in respect to this request to attend sent to him by the Senate. Came to plenary in good time, and we're here being told that the Honorable Senator is on his way coming. We don't know how long it's going to take. That cannot be tolerated. I'm afraid I will have to drop this business. Prime Cabinet Secretary, we are extremely sorry to have you here, and the holder of that particular business is not around to ask that question. I will therefore release you. You may leave at your pleasure, Prime Cabinet Secretary. That business is dropped. Can you usher in the CS in charge of cooperatives? Honorable Senator Chute. Honorable Senator Chute, may you approach the chair, please? Now, Senator Chute just walked in while we were in the process of dropping his business. Clerk, can you confirm that the Prime Cabinet Secretary is still in the house or has he already left? Clerk, can you confirm? Can you confirm that we still have the Prime Cabinet Secretary in the house? All right. Senator Mohammed Chute, you may proceed. First, explain your absence when this matter was called out. If the chair is not satisfied with the reasons you're going to advance, we will still drop your business. Proceed.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. My apologies to the Senate, to the Cabinet Secretary, and to you, Honorable Speaker. I was in a traffic jam. I came running all the way. And
Honorable Chute, you do not have a car.
I do have a car,
So why were you running?
but no, working here from my office, of course. My apologies again.
You may now proceed to ask your question.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I have a question for this Cabinet Secretary. Let me, Prime Cabinet, my apologies again. Thank you very much for coming. And you know, we respect you a lot. My question is, A, could the Cabinet Secretary state the number of Kenyan refugees in a place called Magado and Dilo towns in Ethiopia, and provide information on the timeline and circumstances of their displacement, as well as current state of their well-being? B, what is the government doing to facilitate the repatriation of the Kenyan refugees? And could the Cabinet Secretary provide a timeline for the same? C, could the Cabinet Secretary outline measures put in place to ensure successful reintegration of repatriated refugees into the local community? And finally, D, will the government compensate the refugees? And if so, could the Cabinet Secretary state whether the compensation will be paid? Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Prime Cabinet Secretary, you may now proceed to respond, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wish to respond as follows. And I would seek the indulgence because it's a fairly elaborate response, so that hopefully I can satisfy the concerns of the member. Part A, that is on the information on the number of Kenyan refugees in Megado and Dilo towns. Let me respond as follows. The Kenya Borana refugees arrived in Ethiopia in 2005-2006 and settled in the Borena zone of the Oroma region in Dilo and Megado settlements. Their displacement was triggered by a series of inter-ethnic conflicts in Marsabit County, particularly the conflict between Borana and the Gabra ethnic groups over natural resources, grazing lands, contested and disrupted territorial boundaries, and of course, local political dynamics. Most of the refugees originate from Marsabit County in the following sub-counties: Saku, in Marsabit area, North Hor, Maikona, Dukana, North Hor, and North Hor again, and Muyale sub-county. Upon arrival in Ethiopia, support and protection was initially provided by the Borana clan of Orome region in 2007. They were registered by the Administration of Refugees and Refugee Affairs, ARA, of Ethiopia and UNHCR. They have continued to live alongside the host community, and ARA is currently known as the Refugees and Returnees Services of Ethiopia. On the number and population statistics, according to the Department of Refugee Services, over 500 families of Kenyan origin living in the Dilo and Megado areas of southern Ethiopia ran away to seek asylum due to inter-ethnic conflicts in North Hor in the year 2000. The conflicts culminated into what came to be known as the Turbi massacre. The breakdown today, as at 3rd of December, it's a statistic, but I'll hand over this also to Parliament. For the Dilo, we have a total of 2,060 in Dilo area, and in Megado, 3,600. In terms of households, these now comprise 1,250 households, 5,671 individuals. Male are 2,788, female are 2,883, and children are 3,385 out of the total figure of 5,671. What are the solutions we are looking at? From 27th October to 3rd December, the RSSS and the UNHCR conducted a verification of the Borana refugees in Dilo and Megado refugees settlements. During this period, an intentional survey was carried out to assess the refugees who are willing to return to their home country, Kenya. In terms of households, this amounted to 1,098. In terms of individuals, this was 4,993. Notably, 88% of the total refugee population expressed their intention immediately to return to Kenya. The refugees expressed interest to return to the following areas: 1, Sololo, 1,836, Marsabit, 1,081, Moyale, 633, Oran, 491, Dukana, 325, Moyale Township, 272, North Hor, 206, Maikona, 59, Sangate, Jaldesa, 40, Turbi, 13, and in other areas, 37. Mr. Speaker, the majority of the refugees were not willing to return to their area of origin due to fear of ethnic conflict. They also prefer to move to areas that are inhabited largely by the Borana community. The Kenyan refugees in Ethiopia still retained their identity cards and are now willing to return home to Kenya voluntarily. The second part of the question is about facilitation on the repatriation of the Kenyan refugees, and I wish to respond as follows, Mr. Speaker. The following are possible options. One, there's organized and facilitated return by the UNHCR. This requires a formal engagement between the governments of Kenya and Ethiopia and is formalized through a tripartite agreement that will include the UNHCR. It will require a rigorous process that entails internal survey to go and see visits, identification of settlement areas, signing of voluntary repatriation forms, and other bureaucratic processes. This option may not be immediate as it requires time in order to fulfill all the requirements. There's also the self-organized or self-return, which is usually spontaneous, and the role of the UNHCR in this option will be limited to provision for information and funding to facilitate the return of the refugees. This option requires the government of Kenya to facilitate receiving and resettlement of repatriated individuals. Third, due to the proximity of the refugees to the Ethiopia-Kenya border, their families in Kenya, including the possibility that they cross over to Kenya to visit their families, UNHCR prefers the self-organized return. For repatriation to take place, the refugees must desire to return, and the Kenya-Ethiopia government should engage in consultations facilitated by the UNHCR Regional Bureau and local UNHCR offices. Currently, as I said, 4,993 individuals have expressed their desire to return back to Kenya, and the process of repatriation should begin. The third aspect was the measures put in place to ensure successful reintegration of the repatriated refugees into the local community. Mr. Speaker, again, this has quite a number of issues which I'll try and run through. They may not be exhaustive, but it's important. There are a number of concerns which need to be addressed that have been expressed and should be addressed before repatriation can take place. These include the following. One, where will the displaced persons return to? How will they be accommodated? That is land, housing, among others. The refugees have been relying on humanitarian assistance to access basic services, and they will need similar support until they are fully integrated. We will have to deal with the issue about their safety and security in the settlement areas. There has to be a proper formal reception organized. We also have to cater for their material safely of the younger generation who are born in Ethiopia. The refugees will require assurance of legal safety, rehabilitation, creation of livelihood opportunities, and in some instances, repossession of property, including ancestral land. We will also have to address intermarriage, births in Ethiopia, and confirmation of documentation for spouses and children. There's also need for mutual recognition of the documentation of issues to the refugees because we are dealing with the other country as well. Finally, the question of whether the government will compensate the refugees. With regards to compensation, Mr. Speaker, the government only facilitates return and reintegration into the Kenyan society for any Kenyan refugee granted asylum by any country. No compensations are paid by the government for any returning Kenyan. What do we consider as the way forward? One, repatriation of refugees should be undertaken for those who are willing to return, as it must be voluntary, based on an informed choice and consent to return given by the refugees to avoid coercion and prosecution. It should also be done with dignity. And we hope this process can commence as soon as possible. Kenya should also ensure returnees are safe, devoid of discrimination, provided with basic services and access to essential services to avoid being exposed to another cycle of displacement. We must also engage and coordinate with the UNHCR, Kenya government, and Ethiopia government to facilitate the return of the refugees, including on the required legal formalities, particularly documentation. The send-off from Ethiopia and the reception in Kenya should be done simultaneously. We also have to identification of settlement areas for the returning refugees in coordination with local authorities so as to guarantee safety and security in the resettlement areas. The government will also be looking at how to ensure access to basic foods and services such as health, education, non-food items, shelter, and livelihood opportunities. As I conclude, Mr. Speaker, I wish to reiterate that the ministry remains seized of the situation in the region. A lot has been done, however, much more remains to be done. The ministry appreciates the continued support of the Senate and further requests that the Senate advocates for more resources to be put at our disposal for comprehensive data acquisition and integration to ensure that we remain seized and fully prepared for the changing dynamics globally. Mr. Speaker, I submit.
Honorable Senator Mohammed Chute, you may now proceed to ask your 2 supplementary questions.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I really wonder, the Prime Cabinet Secretary is giving us stories. This is a literature the Prime Cabinet is giving us, and it is very unfortunate. What I want to know from the Prime Cabinet, my question number 2 is very clear. The question is, how are you going to ensure the refugees will be returned back to Kenya? They've been there for many, many years. The answers you've given from A to I is a story on what you are going to do. You have not given us timeline. You should have told the people of Marsabit and the people of this country that on this day, we are going to visit Ethiopia. On this day, we are going to sit with the government. On this day, we are going to bring these people back to Kenya. On this day, we are going to facilitate them on this and this. But the stories, and really, I really don't understand. The same question I am asking you, you are asking me again the same question, that this is A to I. Please tell us the timeline. Are they going to stay for another 10 years, or they are going to be back in the next 1 year? Question number 2. Honorable Speaker, these people have been in Ethiopia for quite a long time. I want the Cabinet Secretary to tell us, when is the last time people from your office visited those guys in Ethiopia? The last time, if there is even any. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Prime Cabinet Secretary, you may now proceed to respond to those 2 supplementary questions.
Mr. Speaker, I just wish to, I explained myself that I'll make a fairly broad statement because the issue of the refugees is a very complex matter. And I want to say that consultations and negotiations are going on. And appreciating that when you're dealing with refugees, it has to be voluntary. There can be no forced repatriation. So these discussions are going on between the government of Kenya and the government of Ethiopia and the UNHCR. And this is the reality of the matter. Mr. Speaker, for whatever it is worth, I just want to point out that we would not want Kenyans to be refugees anywhere. And if we had all the resources and all the planning, it would not necessarily take this long for the refugees to be to be repatriated. But remember, you have to do it voluntarily, because any forced repatriation will be contrary to the international law and matters of humanitarian rights. So we cannot force. We have to be, and that is why there's an elaborate process which I've put in my statement about preparing documentation and ensuring that the individuals, the households voluntarily accede to repatriation. The second one is that our Department of Refugees is in touch and is seized with this matter, Mr. Speaker. So I can only say that we will continue working systematically to be able to do that. The final thing is that in Kenya, as an example, we have a similar situation in a place like Dadaab, and we have a similar situation in Kakuma. Handling challenges also as a spillover from other countries. And therefore, it is a big challenge on matters refugees. So I just want to request the honorable member and the House to appreciate that this is a process and we have to do it so that we are not in breach of any laws, and to also make sure that the requisite resources are available to facilitate the smooth movement of the Kenyans who are out in Ethiopia.
Now, Prime Cabinet Secretary, if I go to the Honorable Senator for Marsabit correctly, you have indicated in your response that there are 4,903 refugees who are willing to return back. So these ones are not coerced. Already they've expressed their willingness to return home. Is there any program that has been put in place, including timelines when the 4,903 will return home, so that we will deal with the others later? But for the 499,300, is there a program, including timelines when they will be brought back home?
Mr. Speaker, the 4,900 that I've given and disclosed, we have reached this after a very elaborate process that is ongoing of making sure that we are systematic in this process. That's how we've arrived at this figure. So in terms of timelines, Mr. Speaker, that is something that I can seek the indulgence of the House to get further clarification from the Department of Refugees if they can be more specific on the timelines. But I can still maintain that there'll be largely indicative timelines. They may not be those that are firmly cast in stone. They could be indicative.
Thank you, Senator Newton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to ask...
Before you ask your question, Senator Newton, Prime Cabinet Secretary, I'm going to allow about 10 or so senators to ask the supplementary questions. So just note down the questions as they are being asked, then you respond them as a go. Proceed. Proceed, Senator Newton, proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to raise an issue with the Cabinet Secretary about very recent media reports that we are integrating refugees from other countries into Kenya through Shirika Plan. And there has been a lot of problems with the host communities. So, Mr. Speaker, my question then to the to the Prime Cabinet Secretary is exactly what is his ministry doing to see to it that the resettlement and the integration of the refugees in Kenya then has the blessings of the host community, and that the government does not just wait for UNHCR to do all the planning, exactly what is the participation of the government in this particular matter, and what has been done in order to have the host community agree or be looped into this particular arrangement. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Manzo.
Mr. Speaker, recently there was a riot by the refugees in Kakuma camp, and within a week, a chartered KQ flight flew quite a number of them to Germany. Could about 3 weeks ago, could the cabinet secretary clarify whether this information is true and whether the international law was followed to release these refugees to Germany while they wanted to be taken to their own countries? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Abbas.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. And I want to thank the CS for his timely coming before even the senator. Honorable Speaker, my question is, one is that there are refugees who are willing to return back, and they've been there for the last 20 years, and they're willing. But the Honorable Prime Secretary has not said the timelines. I don't know why the government is not prepared for that. One other thing is, there's a plan to integrate the refugees with the local communities, which is already in process. And already you are seeing somewhere in Kakuma, the locals are just demonstrating. That shows that there was no preparedness by the government. Because these people, most of them may not be able to integrate. One, they live from different regions, they come from different clans, they come from different religions and all these things. Two, there are not enough facilities to accommodate all these refugees. In the like place like Dadaab and this place, there are over 600,000 refugees. If these same people will be integrated within the locals, the infrastructure which is available is not enough. So how prepared is the government? And what is the input from UNHCR? Thanks so much.
Senator Kavindu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. Mine is just to ask Honorable CS, how is the government plans to settle the Kenyan refugees who are here in Kenya already? Because there are some refugees who are living in Kenya, and they are Kenyans and they are refugees, and others called squatters. Squatters are in many places in Kenya, and these people have nowhere to go. Like there are squatters in Machakos who are being called squatters in Katelembo, and they are being told to move out. How are these people going to be settled and be kept in Kenya and to be settled? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Kavindu, the Prime Cabinet Secretary is in charge of foreign affairs. That's a domestic issue that falls in a different ministry. Anyway, if the Prime Cabinet Secretary would wish to give his thoughts on that matter, he's welcome, but really it doesn't fall within his docket. Senator Cheriot, Aaron.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to appreciate the opportunity and the chance. I have a question for the Prime Cabinet Secretary, and this is in regard to the State Department on that's under him on BLAs that Kenya has signed in the last 2 years. Is the Prime Cabinet Secretary in a position to tell this House how many bilateral labor agreements Kenya has signed in the last 2 years, and how many are in the process, and why there is seemingly a delay in conclusion of some of them that have been under negotiation for quite a while? Because I know these agreements will open up opportunities for many young Kenyans that are looking forward to apply their trade elsewhere where those opportunities exist. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Now, Majority Leader, you know better that a supplementary question must relate to the primary question. Your The question you've just asked does not meet the requirements of a supplementary question. However, Prime Cabinet Secretary, if in a position to respond, you may. If not, you don't have to, because that is not a supplementary question. Senator Lomenan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for this opportunity. Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to ask the Cabinet Secretary regarding the refugees in Kakuma and Dadaab. There is a report by the government to differentiate assistance given to the refugees, assistance called differentiated assistance. I wonder what is the difference between the assistance given to the refugees and assistance given to the host community. B, of that question, Mr. Speaker, is the Cabinet Secretary aware of community, the host community have been difficult, I've seen a difficulty in integrating with the refugees. And is the Cabinet Secretary aware also that enough time has not been given to the host community to participate, to be informed on how they can integrate with the refugees? Because the nature in which the government or the NCR UN have been dealing with the host communities was unfair. And because of this injustice, it has forced the host communities to refuse to integrate with the refugees because of the hostilities of the refugees. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Boni.
Mr. Speaker, allow me to tell the Cabinet Prime Minister good morning. And Cabinet Secretary, these refugees ended up in Ethiopia because of the fight that was taking place between the Borana, Rendile, and the Gabra. And sadly, Mr. Speaker, our colleagues, Honorable Abdi Sasura, Honorable Dr. Bonaya Kodana, Honorable Kuraja, Dr. Kuraja Kalkalo, and former Assistant Minister, MP for Nakuru, Honorable Miruki Kariuki, lost their life when they were going to address this thing as these people ran out of the country. So it is something that evokes bad feelings in the leadership of this country. I therefore, Mr. Speaker, fail to understand that over 4,000 Kenyans have requested that they go back home. Because the challenge, you said yourself, that the refugees must be willing. They have even indicated to you the areas they want to go to, and they have told you that we want to go to areas inhabited by the Borana community, where they think there is peace. Mr. Speaker, my question then begs, the UNHCR is ready and willing to fund the return. The refugees have indicated where they want to go. Where is the problem? Why is the government dragging its feet? And Mr. Speaker, it is very suspicious because the Cabinet Secretary knows that the government made an announcement that they are opening up the borders to allow Somalians from Somali to come into Mandera. So if you are looking for people outside Kenya to come into Kenya, why don't you make it easy for Kenyans outside Kenya to come back home? Finally, Mr. Speaker, with your permission, I know you're about to shoot me. I just wanted to say, if you have the figures, please give us the kind of support you have given compensation to the families of these honorable members, 6 of them who died. I forgot to mention the Titus Ngoyoni. They were our colleagues in this house, and I was with them.
Senator Faki.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika, yangu ni kumpongeza Prime Cabinet Secretary na pia serikali kwa kuwezesha kuachiliwa huru kwa Steve kule Saudi Arabia. Wiki iliyokwisha kulikuwa na habari kwamba Steve ambaye alikuwako amehukumiwa kifo na serikali ya Saudi Arabia alipata mfadhili kupitia kwa shirika la Kiislamu, wakamlipia ile ridhaa ya milioni 124. Na ningependa kuipongeza serikali kwa kushughulikia mambo yake na vile vile pia kusimama na familia ya Steve na hakika atakaporudi nchini Kenya, nafikiri itakuwa ni fursa nzuri kupewa makaribisho, kwa sababu alikuwa ni mtu ambaye amedhulumiwa katika kesi yake, na vile vile pia alikuwa amehukumiwa kifo kwa makosa ambayo alikuwa sio makosa yake, kwa sababu hakuua kwa kukusudia, lakini aliua kwa kujitetea, kwa sababu mtu alikuwa amempiga na yeye alipojitetea yule mtu akaumia, baadaye akafariki. Lakini Mheshimiwa Spika, la kufurahisha ni kuwa alipokuwa gerezani kule Saudi Arabia.
Senator Faki, what is your question, please?
Naja kwa swali langu Mheshimiwa Spika.
Go straight there.
Yeah, swali langu ni kwa kuna wengi kama Steve ambao wako Saudi Arabia ambao wameshindwa kurudi nyumbani. Wengine wana watoto, wale watoto kwa vile Saudi Arabia hairuhusu zinaa, wale watoto ambao wamepatikana, Mheshimiwa Spika, hawana uraia kwa sababu wako kule, wa Kenya hawajui hapa, na vile vile pia hapa hawajapata vyeti vya kuzaliwa wala vyeti vya usafiri. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, nataka kujua ni jambo gani ambalo waziri anafanya ili kuhakikisha kwamba wale wa Kenya ambao wana watoto kule, wana familia kule, wanaweza kupewa vyeti vya kusafiri na vile vile pia vyeti vyao vya kuwawezesha kurudi nchini kwa salama. Asante Mheshimiwa Spika.
Senator Faki, that does not meet the threshold of a supplementary question. However, we are discussing refugee issues here in a context of the Marsabit, Ethiopia situation. That does not certainly meet the requirements of a supplementary question. However, Prime Cabinet Secretary, if you're in a position, you may proceed to shed light on that matter. If you're not obliged to do so today. Senator Veronica.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Prime Cabinet Secretary, the bedrock of protection of refugees is based on the principle of international responsibility. We have seen the Shirika policy program that has been undertaken by the government and specifically your ministry. I want you to confirm to this House whether that Shirika plan is being funded nationally or internationally, and whether there has now been an exchange of humanitarian assistance that should ideally be going to the biggest camps in the world, Kakuma and Dadaab. Whether we have exchanged that with the grants for development, as a result of which Kenya will be forced to pay for that Shirika plan, as opposed to the international community taking up humanitarian assistance for refugees, whom Kenya has been kind enough to host for a very long time in the largest camps in Kakuma and Dadaab. And whether those Kenyans who came from Marsabit and who are now in Ethiopia
are going to benefit from the Shirika plan to come back to the country?
Senator Beatrice Kenya.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. My question to the Cabinet Secretary is, what is the state of basic services that the Kenya refugees in Magatho and Dilo towns in Ethiopia have access to? And now that you are planning for their coming back to Kenya, what are the reintegration plans that we have as per our national standards, particularly on the education and health and other basic amenities?
Senator Chirange.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good morning to my neighbor. Mr. Speaker, mine is straightforward. Under Shirika plan, how many Kenyans have refugee status across Ethiopia and across other nationalities? And Mr. Speaker, under Shirika plan, how much resources does the Cabinet Secretary in charge of Foreign Affairs needs to bring back Kenyans who are willing and others? It should give us the estimate so that we don't just use a sweeping statement that we need only to lobby for more resources. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Mgatana.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for the floor. Mr. Speaker, on 12th of July 2005, the Turbi massacre took place, and this is the basis upon which these refugees ran away to Ethiopia. Mr. Speaker, it was a very sad moment for this country. 56 people are reported to have died. This country has a responsibility for the safety and the life of every Kenyan. What I want to hear from the minister is, have you compensated the 56 people who were killed because of the clash between the Gabra and the Borana? And what programs have you put since then to at least put back the people to where they were? Mr. Speaker, there has been a very serious, how do I call it, ignoring and disregard of the northern lands in this country. And even the lives of the people who live there, they don't count. Mr. Speaker, if that had happened here in Nairobi, or it had happened here in these counties around, there would have been a different reaction. But Mr. Speaker, now we are talking almost 20 years later, no program, no compensation. Can the minister tell us exactly what programs the government is putting in to help our Kenyans, and how much money has been set aside to compensate these families? I submit, Mr. Speaker.
Prime Cabinet Secretary, you may now proceed to respond to those questions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First, I'll just talk to the issue of Shirika plan. And I want to state that there's still a lot of conversation that is taking place between the government, the UNHCR, and the host communities where the refugees are placed. And specifically, if I talk to Kakuma and Dadaab, Mr. Speaker, Kenyans perhaps may need to be reminded in certain circles, not here, but out there, that we have had refugees who have stayed in these camps for as many as 35 to 36 years. Some have been born there. Some have no idea of where their parents migrated from and whether they know where they would be going if they went back. In both camps, this is a challenge that we still face. The second aspect is that the honorable members, I think it should be on record that even as we speak, the situation in South Sudan is getting worse. And we are beginning to see again another inflow at the rate of about 20 refugees per day. So we are beginning to see certain circumstances that are giving us challenges. We also still remain with challenges of the Al-Shabaab and the conflict around the Somali side. And we also have sporadic conflicts along the Marsabit, Ethiopia border from time to time. So there is a serious security issue that has to be looked at regionally, but also internally by Kenya's security forces. The issue of the Shirika plan, as when we say we are talking and it was launched formally, we are engaging so that as the process of looking at the policy moves on, we can also maximize what is going to be the benefit to the people of Kenya. Because we do not want, as somebody said in the differentiated, somebody mentioned the differentiated assistance. It is true that there was a means testing within some of these camps, and they would look at the status in terms of well-being or economic being of some of these refugees, and therefore that would determine the level of rations that certain families would get as opposed to others. Now, these are issues that, if not managed well, can also create a lot of tension in the refugee camps. And this may be part of the reason that there could have been some challenges recently in Kakuma, amongst others. So I just want to state that we do not want, as a government, to enter into any program that is fully funded by the government. We can only handle our position in the context of international obligations. And if the refugees are going to be here, then the institutions like the UNHCR, WFP, and others who support this program will also be talked to and urged to be more productive so that Kenya's resources are not fully deployed for that. Secondly, we do not want to have a situation where communities reach a stage where they feel that those who are refugees are living a better life than the Kenyans themselves. So these are very delicate conversations that keep going on between us, UNHCR, and the host communities where the refugees are. And it would be wrong if I made all this statement without really appreciating the generosity and the humanitarian nature of the communities that have hosted these refugee camps for as long as I have said, 35, 36 years. It is not an easy undertaking. It brings a lot of pressure on the resources in those areas. The other thing, when we talk of integration of the refugees, it has to be done carefully, because we also want to transit from a situation where refugees are just drawing from Kenyan resources. They must also be put to a situation where they contribute to growing the wealth of this country and not just taking from the people of Kenya. So the whole Shirika plan is premised on these basic principles and a few others. The other thing that I would want to touch on is that the Honorable Boni Khalwale raised issues about the insecurity, protracted insecurity in these regions, and also recounting the loss of many honorable Kenyans because of this conflict. And also Mungatana has raised the issue of compensation. I want to be very candid on something here, not to belittle the challenges we are facing, but the truth of the matter is that we are still having insecurity in certain regions, either because of pasture, because of ethnicity, because of the scramble for resources in those areas. We've given an example of Marsabit. You will also recall that even not too long ago, Kenya lost General Ogola in the Baringo side, again on a mission dealing with aspects of conflicts internally. So we still have a lot of work to do to make sure that we can change cultural practices. We can provide meaningful alternatives for people to earn a proper living that does not cause the loss of lives. And I would want to point out that, for instance, in Marsabit, and going into Marsabit, the government is doing quite a bit to try and open up the areas. The road network that we all know, that is really moving, and it's going to eventually go beyond and link up to Garissa. And the road network, the investment that is going in that place, jointly by the government of Kenya and the World Bank, is massive. And all this is to help in facilitating so that there are more economic opportunities. So it is not that the government of Kenya is going to neglect or wishes to neglect anybody. It's a question of just us having more resources and deploying them progressively into these areas. I wish to state that Honorable Mthama, I agree with the speaker that that is a completely different angle, because internally displaced Kenyans for other reasons are tackled separately, not in the context of the refugee program. So that would have to be taken up as a completely separate question. When we talk of resources, I hope I've also addressed partly the issues raised by Beatrice, Senator Beatrice, in terms of the state. No, she was talking of the state of basic resources in Ethiopia, not here. In Ethiopia, I cannot say that they are very elaborate, because the situation of refugees is that even the government, the host government that is there, can only do so much within the context of their budgetary resources. So we cannot vouch fully for what the government of Ethiopia can do or not do within the refugee camps. However, what is critical is for us to accelerate the relocation of the Kenyan refugees from Ethiopia. And the message I'm taking from here is that resources need to be set aside urgently to be able to undertake this challenge. There are issues that will require further scrutiny about compensation of victims. I don't want to make generalized statements. We'll take that and we can respond to some specifics with better detail and more accurate information. Mr. Speaker, some of the questions were interconnected. On the issue of bilateral labor agreements, I just want to say that it's work in progress, But we are ready to file a report with Parliament as to how many bilateral agreements have been entered into and which ones are under negotiations. That we can do so that the information is availed to the Senate. Mr. Speaker, let me go away with the issue that we can respond with more clarity on the issue of timelines after further consultations, so that we are able to get a little more accurate information from the State Department that deals with refugees. The issue of Munyako and the plight of other Kenyans in Saudi Arabia, we are happy that as things stand, there's light at the end of the tunnel for Steve Munyako. The legal processes in Saudi are still ongoing, so that the justice system there can do all the procedural steps before he's finally given an opportunity to come to Kenya. And I just want to say that the World Muslim League is the one that made the contribution, and our embassy is closely in touch to try and assist so that this process is concluded. And indeed, there are many other Kenyans who are facing challenges, not just in Saudi Arabia, but in other parts of the world as well. And we are also in negotiations on the issue of children born in Saudi out of wedlock. And it has become a challenge because, as you said, it's taken very seriously there. So the embassy, the Kenyan embassy, is trying to engage, and also the government is trying to engage to see if a formula can be found to allow those who are confirmed to be of Kenyan descent to be able to be given the necessary accreditation for them to enjoy their citizenship as we go forward. But it is a challenge that we face. I think I saw Honorable Manzo raised something about planes, Kenya Airways picking people and taking them to Germany. I just want to say that there can be no forced repatriation. There can be no forced repatriation or movement of refugees. If somebody anywhere has been allowed to board a plane and to fly to another place, it's because their papers are valid. Otherwise, they would not be able to leave and go to another country. So there's no forceful ejection and migration of any Kenyans or even refugees that has been taken by the Kenya government. So I think there is some misinformation somewhere. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Prime Cabinet Secretary. I think that terminates our interaction with the Prime Cabinet Secretary. We will now move to question number 007 and 042. Prime Cabinet Secretary, you may now leave at your pleasure. Other honorable senators, the CS in charge of cooperatives and micro and small and medium enterprises is in the House. For purposes of responding to question number 007 by the Senator for Migori County, Senator Eddie Okech, and thereafter to respond to question number 042 by Senator Veronica Maina. Let me take this opportunity to welcome the CS to the Senate. Honorable CS, you only have 2 questions directed to you this morning. I will call upon the Senator, nominated Senator Beatrice Akinyi on behalf of Senator Eddie Okech to proceed and ask question number 007. You may proceed, Honorable Senator.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and thank you once more for granting me the opportunity to read out the question by the Migori Senator as instructed by himself. I want to welcome the CS, the Cabinet Secretary, one Honorable Wycliffe Ambassador Oparanya, who was also my deputy party leader and a committed man at that. Honorable Speaker, this is a question number 007 by the Senator for Migori County, Senator Eddie Okech, to ask the Cabinet Secretary for Cooperatives and Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises Development. Question A is, could the Cabinet Secretary explain the failure by the former Kenya Cooperative Creameries, KCC, and now by the new Kenya Cooperative Creameries, new KCC, to pay terminal dues to former employees of KCC whose contracts were terminated in the year 1999? B, when can the affected former employees expect to receive their terminal dues? And lastly, Mr. Speaker, sir, could the Cabinet Secretary also indicate whether the former employees have received payment for the cooperative society shares they held as at the time of their exit from KCC? And if not, provide reasons for the same. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable CS, you may now proceed to respond.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to answer the question. I will have to go through the journey, take you through the journey of the new KCC for the House to actually grasp where we are. Our response as a ministry, the origin of the Kenya Cooperatives Creameries Limited, KCC Limited, dates back to 22nd August 1925, when it was incorporated as a limited liability company. Later, on 8th February 1932, it was registered as a cooperative society, whereby it ran its operation until the year 1999, when it was then placed under receivership by the Kenya Commercial Bank, who was its debenture holder. In the year 2000, private individuals incorporated KCC 2000 Limited and acquired KCC business through bids invited by the receiver manager then, PricewaterhouseCoopers. KCC was liquidated. Therefore, it ceased to exist as a cooperative society nor a party corporate, since it was sold off to KCC 2000 Limited, which was a private company. On 6 June 2003, following a cabinet approval, the government of the Republic of Kenya bought back all the assets that had been sold to the KCC 2000 Limited. On 19th November 2004, new KCC was incorporated as a limited liability company with 100% government shareholding, thus converting its status to a state corporation under certificate number C11 358 353-8. In the year 1988, during the subsistence of KCC Limited, the claimants above filed an industrial case number 24 of 1988, wherein they had sued KCC Limited following termination of their employment after a strike had been called by the union. The matter was heard and the court made a ruling that KCC Limited was liable to pay them. However, KCC Limited had collapsed, went into liquidation, and subsequently wound up and ceased to exist by the Kenya Gazette notice of 4th March 2003. At the time the claimants were filing the suit in the year 1988, New KCC Limited was not in existence and therefore was not a party to the suit. Similarly, New KCC Limited, having not been in existence when the claimants were in employment, it was clearly not their employer. The said claimants were employees of KCC Limited and not New KCC Limited, thus cannot be compensated by an organization they did not work for. New KCC Limited and KCC Limited cannot be said to be one and the same in law. However, a vesting order that was subsequently issued on 15th November 2005 was vested free from all encumbrances. That in accordance with the Transfer of Business Act, Section 3, a public notice was done and was printed in the Daily Nation on 28 June 2005 in regard to the government's purchasing the business and assets of KCC 2000 Limited. The employees did not object the notice to claim their dues as is required by the law, and thus Section 8 of the same act came into effect that a claimant cannot institute a claim in respect of any liability upon expiry of 6 months. In the year 2013, the claimants filed a suit, Nairobi number 1299, 2013, John Kihato, Barrow, and 108 others, versus New KCC Limited and the Attorney General, seeking to be paid a sum of 204,417,555.50 Kenya shillings at the High Court. The matter was heard and concluded, and the High Court made a ruling that New KCC Limited was liable to pay KCC Limited former employees' dues. Subsequently, New KCC Limited filed an appeal against the High Court decision at the Court of Appeal under Civil Appeal number 191 of 2018. A 3-judge bench on 10th July 2020, held that new KCC was not liable for the liability of KCC Limited, which included the terminal benefits and unpaid SACCO shares of the said claimants. However, notwithstanding the above, and absolving of the new KCC Limited from the said liabilities, in accordance with the law that the appellate judges employed upon the Attorney General's office, verbatim, having said so, however, and legalities aside, we hold on to the hope that the Attorney General will find it in her to advise government to honor its word and pay the first respondents who have suffered long. In view of the above comment by the appellant charges, my ministry wrote to the Attorney General seeking an advisory on the same. In a letter dated 3rd October 2024, reference number AG CONF/6B/18-2, the Attorney General provided an advisory, made several recommendations, including, number one, formation of an interministerial committee consisting of the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock, the Ministry of Cooperatives and MSME Development, and the National Treasury to look into the matter and resolve the issue with finality. The committee should be tasked to collect, audit, verify, authenticate, and validate the claims and recommend whether the same should be settled and to what extent within reasonable timelines. That upon conclusion of its work, the petitioners should be engaged in out-of-court settlement with a view of finding an amicable solution to the impasse and notification of the outcome to be done to the Senate. My ministry has already written to the Treasury, the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock Development, to nominate suitable officers to implement the Attorney General's advisory. When the committee is constituted and completes its work, the recommendation thereof will be communicated to the Senate. For question number B, when can the affected former employees be expected to receive their terminal dues? My response, Mr. Speaker, sir, the former employees may be paid once the interministerial committee completes its work and recommends payment and National Assembly appropriates the required funds in the national budget. On the last question, could the Cabinet Secretary also indicate whether the former employees have received payment for their cooperative society shares they held as at the time of the exit from KCC, and if not, provide reasons for the same? My response, Mr. Speaker, sir, is that I'm not aware of any complaints on payment of cooperative shares held by the time KCC Limited was liquidated. I, however, am aware of claims of funds deducted from the then employees' salaries that had not been remitted in their cooperative society in respect of their shares. This amount is being considered together with other employment dues as explained in the above response. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Betty Akinyi, you may now ask your two supplementary questions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Once more, my two supplementary questions are, Honorable CS, do you have an inventory of these former employees? And if so, how many? You have seen, you described them as have suffered for so long. And so do you know how many they are and what are the timelines of the finalities you talk about in terms of the ministerial committee work and the letter you've written to the Treasury? Do you have timelines for them? That is one question. Honorable Speaker, the second question is, what is the state of the assets of the KCC Limited?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I have the full list of the number of employees affected. As I've stated, this has been an issue of a court case for a long time, and the ministry is aware of what was going on. I've clearly stated that this matter is now at the interministerial level, and we are doing all we can. These are Kenyans who have suffered for a long time, and we feel, in fact, some of them have even passed on. These issues are being followed by their siblings, and we are committed to making sure that they get their dues as soon as we finalize our interministerial consultation, and as soon as proper appropriation is done by the National Assembly so that these people can be paid. In terms of assets of the KCC, as I've clearly mentioned, KCC was bought by the new KCC, and they took over all the assets, and the government then paid about 500 million Kenya shillings for that consideration of the assets. And now these assets are under the ownership of the new KCC.
Senator Margaret Kamar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity. May I start, Mr. Speaker?
Now, before you ask your question, Honorable Kamar, Honorable CS, I will allow about 10 senators to ask their supplementary questions. Just note them down, and then you respond to them at a go.
Okay, thank you.
Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. May I start by congratulating the CS, being a new member of the cabinet and being here for the first time in my case. I know he worked very well with you, Mr. Speaker, when you are both ministers, and did a very good job. And I don't doubt that he's going to do the same thing in this ministry. Mr. Speaker, KCC, original KCC, and I want to thank the minister for giving us the chronological, the historical events that have taken place in KCC. I am a beneficiary because my father was a dairy farmer and I benefited a lot through our education system. The minister has addressed, as per the question, the issue of the staff. How about the issue of the farmers and the shares of the farmers? When we talk of the assets which were bought in the year 2000 by new KCC, what was paid to the farmers? Because my late father died with the hope that one day his shares in KCC shall be paid to us, his children, but we have not had anything of that sort. Did the government consider the shares that were owned by the farmers? Because the assets really belong to the farmers. They didn't belong to nobody. They belong to farmers. Among them, a very huge population
in both Elgeyo Marakwet, where I was born, and Wasingishu, where I reside. What consideration was given to the farmers?
Senator Mbugua.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Cabinet Secretary, for your response. My question is, the recommendation to form this committee was done 6 months ago. And from your response, you are only talking about 2 letters being taken. What assurance can you give this House on your commitment to ensure that this matter is resolved within the shortest time possible? Thank you.
Senator Manzo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, when I was a secretary of Ministry of Cooperatives, the issue was that farmers used to deposit their milk there daily, and therefore they build their shares on a daily basis, and the assets belong to them. The ownership of cooperatives is usually on equal basis, so that you may find one farmer doesn't have a bigger share than the other. What effort has been made to make sure that these liters of milk, that there is a record for them, and it forms part of the ownership of the farmers, which is informed now by the value of the current value of the assets. And could that be accounted so that when you deal with the employees, we also deal with the original members of the cooperative society? I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Esi Okinyuri.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would also wish to know why now we have talked about KCC then, but new KCC, Mr. Speaker, is currently frustrating farmers by delaying in terms of payment. Then what happens to milk that has already been supplied and sold? At the same time, remember, we have powdered milk sneaking from neighboring countries and flooding our market. So it's actually compressing whatever we have here, and so many of those processors have dead stock. So what is the ministry doing to mitigate that, and at the same time for compensate farmers who've supplied milk and new KCC are sold but not paying them? Thank you.
Senator Morango.
Asante sana Mstahiki Spika. Swali langu linahusu muda, kwa sababu unajua waziri, swali husema mnyonge mnyongeni na haki yake umpe. Nimeona umesema kwamba kuna mazungumzo inaendelea ili wale ambao hawakulipa pesa zao waweze kupata pesa zao, lakini ukipiga hesabu ni takriban miaka 27 imeisha. Wengi washakufa, bado wanangojea pesa zao. Waziri, ningekuuliza kama ungekuwa wewe, ungekuwa na uwezo wa kungojea miaka karibu 30 pesa zinje, na hali uko na mambo ambayo unafaa kutumia ile pesa kufanya. Kwa hivyo inawezekanaje utupe muda ambao unaona kama unakandilia inaweza kumaliziwa ili hao watu waweze kufaidika na pia waweze kupata nafuu, kwa sababu hiyo pesa yao imekaa kwa muda mrefu sana. Na ya mwisho waziri, ni kwamba unajua nchi inashikiliwa sana na wakulima. Vyama vingi vya ushirika ambavyo vimeanguka na vingi vinaenda na pesa wakulima, vimeenda kwa sababu ya uongozi mbaya katika vyama vya ushirika. Unafanyaje kuhakikisha kwamba jambo kama hili lilifanyika katika KCC haitarudiwa tena? Asante sana Mr. Speaker.
Senator Mandela.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. My supplementary question, Honorable Speaker, is in relation to what the Cabinet Secretary has said in terms of the assets. Honorable Speaker, I asked a statement in September 2024 on the issue of assets of new KCC, and the Cabinet Secretary had committed to provide a list of assets with its valuation. We have not received to date. We also know that the 500 million that was paid was actually not commensurate to the value of the assets of KCC then. What are you doing as a Cabinet Secretary to secure the assets of new KCC as they are? Because, Honorable Cabinet Secretary, you have a very rogue board, and you know what they were trying to do. You know what they have done with they wanted to do with the new KCC headquarters. Of course, you know the Tetra Pak house, and you also know the one in Ngong Road has already been leased out. What are you doing to secure the assets of new KCC? And when are you going to provide the comprehensive list of the assets of new KCC?
Senator Mgatana.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I was listening carefully to the answer the Honorable Cabinet Secretary was giving, and I wanted to draw his attention to the decision of the Court of Appeal when they negatived the decision of the High Court that the workers do not have a right. You said something very fundamental there. You said that the Court of Appeal said, despite, aside from the legalities, please, Attorney General, find a way for these workers to be paid. What I'm finding curious, Mr. Speaker, and this is where the question is, why, as a minister, and by the way, I'm glad that you took it up and wrote a letter to the Attorney General, but what the Court of Appeal is simply saying is that there is no legal basis for the payment of these workers, but there is a moral basis. That is, as ex gratia payment is due and owing. So the question is, why couldn't you call the litigants or their committee, just agree? You just tell them this is what the court has said. This is the end of it. Why can't we agree on 500,000 each person or 200,000? You negotiate and then seek the budget through a cabinet paper. Why then start forming interministerial committees? I don't know what. Why follow this long-sighted, winded process? Don't you think that's a way of trying to escape responsibility? Why can't you just shorten this process, write a cabinet paper, get funding for it, and pay these people? And why can't you do just a shortcut for this matter to be resolved? Because all the question the Senate is asking you is, can you shorten the timelines to finish this matter? Why can't you, Mr. Minister? I submit, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Veronica.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for this opportunity, and welcome to Senate CS Cooperatives and Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises Development. You have a big assignment in your hands, Honorable CS. And when I look at the answer you have given us regarding claims and terminal dues by employees who are in KCC in 1999, I get very concerned, because when our citizens invest in assets they believe to be co-owned by government, it means it's like a bond of guarantee that they cannot lose their investment and their dividend. But when a dispute is this prolonged and it's affecting people who are not very well able financially, it's not a very good statement. In fact, the treasury bills, why Kenyans invest in treasury bills is because there is a guarantee to that treasury bill returning dividends. So CS, when do you think you can pay these former employees of KCC, and why has the new KCC refused to oblige to the directive of a minimum price guarantee of 50 shillings per litre, a complaint which has come from a county like Nyandarua? I spoke to a few residents from Nyandarua whose milk is being sold below 40 shillings. Why are we having that confusion when the policy guideline on the price, the minimum guaranteed price for their milk should not be below 50 shillings to the farmer and 3 shillings for administrative cost? Why do we have those disparities?
Senator Kisang.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, my supplementary question, I listened to the answers by the CS, Honorable Speaker, and the answers are very diplomatic, because the CS said we may pay after the subcommittee, the cabinet subcommittee finishes its job and Parliament allocates the resources. What I expected the CS to say, Honorable Speaker, is as the CS in charge of cooperatives, he will allocate resource, he'll budget for 2025, 26, and put in the budget National Assembly appropriates what a proposal that you've already given. They don't initiate the proposal. So that's why the answers are basically diplomatic. And what Senator Mugadana said, basically this is a long way of delaying because most of the employees, Honorable Speaker, have already passed on. The children, the spouses are the ones they've been waiting for the last 30 years, Honorable Speaker. And let's basically, as a country, we say, may these people then, instead of using the law to frustrate our people, can we then auction the property for new KCC? Because, they are forming new companies to evade responsibility, Honorable Speaker. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Senator Rober.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this matter for KCC was actually executed at the Labour Committee where I sit, Mr. Speaker. And I wanted to ask a supplementary question to Waziri because I have seen that in his response, he has put a chronological order of what transpired. And from his response, from your response, Waziri, you can see that there are three issues that are being highlighted. Number one, no one really knows how a company was sold on the basis of assets and profits, but liabilities were put aside because we have engaged with the workers in the Labour Committee, and they were repeatedly informed that they were not part of the agreement and nothing to do with them was going to be absorbed in the new KCC. Much later, when they went to court, which you have also listed here, you can see that there is a suit where the employees were actually told that they are owed their dues. So my supplementary question is, first of all, are you aware that there has been conflicting communication to these employees? First, that they are not part of any kind of sales agreement. The second one, they were told that some of them will be absorbed, and some of them had even alluded and presented some things in the Labour Committee that they had been extended some offer letters on work. So are you aware of that? And then suddenly they were dropped. The other question is it possible for Kenyans to see the documentation of the sale from KCC Limited to new KCC? Because then some of these questions would be answered, including the list of inventory of the assets, including what was going to happen to the employees of KCC. And finally, we, as the Labour Committee, we were very against the interministerial working group or committee because there's nothing that they are going to discuss that has not been discussed and proposed by the Labour Committee. So are you aware that, in fact, the mandate of the interministerial committee has not been outlined and is not to the public? So why do we have an interministerial committee just to buy time and continue to frustrate these Kenyans? Thank you, Speaker.
Honorable CS, you may now proceed to respond to those questions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the members for raising these very pertinent issues. Honorable Kamal talked of staff and the shares of the farmers. And I can say here, Honorable Speaker, that most of the staff of KCC that were suitable for employment were taken over by new KCC. And obviously, Honorable Speaker, this has taken time and most of them have actually retired. On the shares of the farmers of KCC, when the new company, new KCC, through the government, bought the shares of KCC, the government paid off approximately 500 million Kenya shillings. And this money was meant to compensate the shareholders of KCC 2000, which was actually a private company. And I've clearly stated how the companies moved from one state to the other. Of course, Mr. Speaker, I have had complaints from previous shareholders of the KCC even before it was bought by KCC 2000, complaining about their shares. But there is little that I can do at that moment because this particular company had already moved. And I intentionally gave you the history of the company so that you can actually understand when I come up with other comments. Mheshimiwa Mbugwa, you talked of about 6 months has taken. It is clearly, and Senator Mkantana has already said this, that actually these particular employees were not supposed to be compensated by new KCC, because new KCC is a complete answer. But because of moral, and we thought these are Kenyans who have worked for all those years, they need compensation, even from government point of view. And I want to assure you that I'm going to take up this issue seriously so that these people are compensated as soon as possible. And in case I have problems, I'll come back to you before this house to say that this is where I reached and these are the problems that I have encountered. Senator Mwanzo talked of ownership. I can clearly state here, and this will cover also the questions raised by Senator Mandago about assets. Assets were taken over, and I'm ready to come with a full inventory of assets that were taken over. In fact, when I assumed office, I ordered a forensic audit on all the assets of new KCC. Unfortunately, I wrote a letter to the Auditor General, but unfortunately, she was supposed to send staff to carry out that exercise. Up to this time, she has not done so because of a shortage of staff and other pressing engagements. But I will make a follow-up so that a proper forensic audit is done, and I will avail the detailed inventory list of all the assets that were taken over by new KCC. The issue of governance in the cooperative movement is very rampant. And Mr. Speaker, I can say before you that that's why we came up with the Cooperative Bill 2024. The Cooperative Bill 2024 has gone through the National Assembly, and it is before this House. I want to plead with you, Mr. Speaker, that please let the House, the Senate, consider this legislation, the Cooperatives Bill 2024, and if it is passed, it will deal with many of these governance issues, because governance issues of the cooperative movement have been adequately addressed in that particular bill. The issue of assets and valuation, I've promised that this will be available, a comprehensive list, and that I will also remind the Auditor General to do a forensic audit so that both documents of the list I have, already which I have, and the forensic audit, I will present it to the Senate. the issue of Mkatana, I'm with you, Senator Mkatana, about the moral responsibility of the government to make sure that these people are paid, and I'm going to take the responsibility of making sure that these people are paid as short as possible within the time frame. But the issue of interministerial was not the creation of the ministry. This was a recommendation from the AG Attorney General. He recommended that we discuss. As you might be aware, at that time, cooperatives as a state department was within the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock, so there might be some documents which are there, and that's why they were being brought in the fold, and also the Treasury to make sure that this allocation is expedited for this staff to be paid. On the issue of the minimum price for the milk, I want to state here categorically that it is 50 shillings. And I want to assure you that as I stand here, no farmer is owed any money for the milk that has been delivered, except for the month of March. And in the normal circumstances, farmers are paid between the 5th and the 10th of the following month. So for the month of March, they are going to be paid between 5th and 10th April. And I will want to know or get a list of those farmers who have complained from Senator Veronica who have not been paid at the moment. I'm ready to stand with what I'm saying, that no farmer is owed money. However, most of these farmers work through the cooperatives. The maximum we pay at the moment is 50. This money goes to the cooperatives. Cooperatives will then deduct their own expenses as agreed by the farmers. So the farmers will end up with a net. So depending on the commitments of those cooperatives, some farmers will end up with 43, some farmers will end up with 48, because some of those cooperatives have actually committed some liabilities on behalf of the farmers which have to be deducted. But I can assure you that from KCC, no farmer is paid through the cooperative less than 50 shillings per liter.
Let's proceed, Honorable Chairs. Senator Mandago, you may approach the chair.
I want, as I have stated, that I will take it as my personal responsibility to just answer the last question to make sure that this particular employees of the new of KCC 2000 have suffered for too long. We will make what is possible to make sure that they are paid as soon as possible. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Senators, will now move to question number 042 by Senator Veronica Maina. Honorable Senator, you may now proceed to ask your question.
Honorable CS, I have this question to pose to you. What immediate plans does the ministry have to revive Kemori Coffee Factory in Querries Village, Kahumbu Ward in Kegumo constituency, which is critical for the economy of the residents of that area? And question B, could the Cabinet Secretary state the specific very specific timelines for the revival of this coffee factory and indicate the resources allocated by the ministry for that purpose, and C, what measures does the ministry have for long-term sustainability and economic viability of this factory? Thank you.
Honorable CS, you may now proceed to respond.
Kimuri Coal Factory is the only factory belonging to Kimuri Farmers Cooperative Society. Kimuri Farmers Cooperative Society split from the larger Njola Farmers Cooperative Society to run separately with only one processing factory. Despite being registered to operate independently, Kimuri Farmers Cooperative Society is now dormant due to unsustainable operations arising from low active membership, low coffee production, and poor governance. Kimuri Factory requires the following facilities to revive operations. One, drying tables, reconnection, and other coffee pulping machinery, and facilities are available. In order to revive the operations of the coffee factory and the cooperative in general, the ministry, in collaboration with the county government of Murang'a, intends to conduct fresh elections to reconstitute the management committee, build capacity to the newly elected management committee, sensitize coffee farmers within the catchment area of the factory on the need to patronize the services of the cooperative, facilitate the reconnection of electricity to the coffee factory and the coffee farmers within the catchment area, and then finally facilitate the reconstruction of drying tables and services of other equipment and facilities. On question number B, the intervention listed in response A above will be implemented during the financial year 2025-2026, whereby we have factored in the budget provision of 18.5 million for coffee revitalization. Part of these funds will be used to support the revitalization of the operations of the Coffee Cooperative Society. On question number C, the ministry is working with other government ministries, departments, and agencies and is in the process of implementing the coffee revitalization strategy that covers several areas that include policy, both coffee and cooperative policies, legal, both the Coffee Act and the Cooperative Act and accompanying regulations, streamlining coffee marketing and payment systems, increasing area under coffee, amongst others. These measures are expected to improve the sustainability of the factory together with the coffee sectors in general. I submit, Mr. Speaker, sir.
You may now proceed to ask your two supplementary questions.
Honorable CS, are you aware that in spite of this answer which you have given and which to a good extent is general, that at the point when this coffee factory was being shut, its annual production was over 1 million kilograms of coffee production, and that right now farmers have to walk over 10 kilometers to access the next coffee factory, as a result of which they have abandoned their coffee farms because of the closure of this factory? And second question is, why have you shied away from giving a specific timeline when you can tell me, Senator Veronica, let's go to Kimuri Coffee Factory tomorrow. We are starting the operations and reviving this coffee factory. You have shied away from giving a proper schedule, and you are the ministry entrusted with ensuring that such factories are revived so farmers can be able to produce, take their production, their produce to the market.
Honorable CS, you may now proceed to respond.
Thank you very much. Senator Veronica, I'm aware of what is happening and in the coffee sector in general. And that's why we have come up with a coffee revitalization strategy for the year 2025, 26, a project that is starting now and will go on for the next 3 years to ensure that we increase coffee productivity, we ensure proper governance within the cooperative sector. And let me tell you this, I'm committed to go with you anytime you are available so that I can make my personal commitment to make sure that we revive this particular cooperative.
Senator Manzo. Yes, Senator Veronica, I thought your question had been addressed.
But I need a clarification. There is no schedule served here. He's committed and that I can do the visit, but I want a schedule that goes to revive the factory itself. The visit is the easier part. But reviving the factory, why have you not committed a timeline or a schedule in your response? And can you give a supplementary response to give the timeline for which you'll commit? Because I don't want to believe that you'll take 3 years to revive something that's already existing, which only went down, Honorable CS.
Honorable Senator, I'm telling you, let us go to the ground. Through that judgment, when I'm on the ground, I will be able to tell you definitely this I can take such a long period to do it. Because I'm depending on a question, on answers that have been given to me by the, the county government of Moranga. So that's why I've said, let me visit it so that I can make personal commitment. And secondly, you know that cooperatives is a shared responsibility or a shared function between county governments and national governments. So we have to be, both governments have to be there to see who does what, so that we can coordinate our issues properly.
Senator Boni Kalwale. Senator Boni, then Senator Manzo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, you are out of order. Mr. Speaker, allow me to congratulate the new minister for his presence in this ministry. The country remembers that His Excellency, the President, because of the weighting he put on this issue, actually assigned special responsibilities to the former Deputy President to do what you're doing now. And we didn't see his footprints. In a short time, you've blown a strong breath of hope in the coffee sector. And Mr. Speaker, I want to, before I ask, acknowledge your answer in part C, where you have spoken to the coffee revitalization strategy that covers special areas that include policy and so on and so forth. This is very good. But there's something you've left out and which concerns me. The issue of governance. You and I have been around for a while. You know that the Nordic countries were so interested in this particular cooperative movement that they actually put up a cooperative college in Karen. And that college, I don't know what happened, Madam Speaker, it was converted into a university. So, and this is the college that would give capacity building in the area of governance in our cooperatives. So given that the university has taken over the college, what are you planning to do to ensure that these skills of governance and then given to these people from a centralized place, recognized like the former cooperative college that was in Nordic? And finally, Madam Speaker, with your permission, the blueprint which you have attempted to give in C gives a lot of hope to all farmers across the country, including our own home, you and I, Kakamega. The people of Shitori Cooperative, Shitori Factory in Idaho Central, of a Kolomani, like many other, like Kimuri, are waiting to hear how much money you've put in the budget to ensure that Shitori Factory in a Kolomani, like many others, can actually be revitalized.
Senator Manzo.
Yes, Madam Speaker, you know the minister is on his feet, but I will be as brief as possible. First, I want to congratulate the CS for coming up with the new cooperatives law, because this is going to deal with the governance in individual cooperatives like Kimori. But bearing in mind that the budget to Ministry of Cooperative has remained tiny over the years, and also bearing in mind that the counties whereby they're dealing with the cooperatives as a devolution strategy is also underfunded. What are you going to do about ancient situations like Kimuri? Do you have some other sources of funding, you know, like international funding, interested people in the cooperative movement worldwide who really want to support Kenyan cooperative movement so that you have funds to revive a cooperative like Kimuri? I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Senator Murango. Honorable CS, you could even take your seat because we'll take the questions and then you respond to them together.
Asante sana Mstahiki Spika. Mstahiki Spika, kwanza ni kushukuru kwa swali ambayo umeuliza kuhusu vyama vya ushirika ambazo vingi vimefilisika. Jambo la kwanza, sababu kubwa inakuanga ni uongozi mbaya katika vyama vya ushirika na wale wanaoongoza katika vyama vile ambao wanachaguliwa kule mashinani. Na waziri, unajua lazima tukianza kutatua tatizo tuweke msingi ya kwamba jambo hilo halijatokea. Kulikuwa na sababu kubwa ambayo ilifanya Kimuri kufilisika, ambalo inafaa iangaliwe kwa kina. Kwanza, ilifilisika kwa nini? Kwa sababu tunapojaribu kuongeza kuzalisha kahawa na wakulima bado wanaenda kilomita 10 kwenda kupeleka kahawa yako katika mitambo ya kusagia na vyama vya ushirika, wengi wataenda kulima vitu vingine ambavyo havingekuwa vya maana sana kushinda kahawa. Mstahiki Spika, na kitu ambacho ningeambia waziri ni kwamba na chanzo kubwa sana vyama kufilisika, kuna mambo mengine inatokana na maafisa ambao wako katika wizara yako, wale maafisa wa vyama vya ushirika. Nasema hivyo kwa nini? Juzi mwaka uliopita katika Kirinyaga, Kibiregu Cooperative Society, Mutira Cooperative Society kutoka Kirinyaga karibu sifilisike kwa sababu ya mikopo iliyochukuliwa ambayo ilikuja ikakumbaliwa na maafisa kutoka wizara yako. Wakakopa pesa na wakukopa kwa bank, walikopa kwa watu binafsi, halafu wakakata wakulima. Kwa hivyo ni jambo moja linalofaa kushughulikiwa. Mstahiki Spika, nikimalizia, Pia kama tunataka wakulima wa kahawa wawe na pesa mfukoni, kuna mambo mpaka tuangalie. Katika gazeti la serikali juzi kulikuwa na toleo ambalo lilikuwa limetolewa na waziri Mbadi, ambao lilikuwa linasema kwamba sasa wakulima wanafaa watakuwa wanatozwa 0.3 pesa ambayo itaenda kwa shirika taasisi ya CMA ambayo iko katika wizara hiyo ya hazina, 0.3 ambayo itaenda kama malipo ambayo italipa ile malipo ya moja kwa moja inaitwa DSS, na 0.2 ambazo zilikuwa zinafaa iende katika soko, katika Nairobi Coffee Exchange. Mstahiki Speaker, hata tukiamusha Kimuri na tuendelee kutoza wakulima, na ambao nasema ni ubaguzi wa wakulima kwa sababu CMA inatoa pesa yake katika hazina kuu. Kwa nini lazima iwe mmea ambao utatozwa pesa ni mmea moja tu wa kahawa na CMA? Kwa nini? Hiyo ndio swali nimekuwa nikiuliza. Kwa hivyo waziri, najua hiyo si sehemu yako, lakini ningependa pia ufuatilie kidogo, uangalie wakulima wako, vyama vya ushirika ni pesa ngapi zinakatwa, kwa sababu kama Kirinyaga sisi tumejipanga. Na waziri, najua unakubaliana na mimi, kama kuna mahali vyama vya ushirika zimekita mizizi na ziko sawa ni Kirinyaga. Tuko na factory 77, tuko na vyama vya ushirika 14 na chama kimoja kikubwa katika Kirinyaga ambao kinaangalia mambo ya kahawa. Lakini pia tumeweza kununua machini ya kusaga kahawa, tunajisagia wenyewe na sasa tunajiuzia wenyewe. Lakini hapo tumepitia, tumepatikana hapo na CS Bandi, bado wanataka kukula kutoka kwa kikapu chetu. Angalia hiyo waziri.
Senator Charadike.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. From the onset, before I just support your statement, is I want to congratulate my friend Governor Oparanya, the new CS, for the good job he's doing in the coffee and other subsector. Madam Speaker, just to follow up on your question, just like Imuri, in Nandi, and there's a perception in this country, and sorry for saying this, Madam Speaker, that coffee is only grown in Mount Kenya or Murima, but coffee is grown across the country, including Nandi, Bungoma, among other areas, and even Kakamega, Machakos, Makueni, and many other areas across the country. Madam Speaker, in line with the Coffee Cherry Fund under the Coffee Bill, what are the strategies alongside Kimuri Factory that, Madam Speaker, you have raised to support coffee cooperative farms, cooperative societies? For example, in Nandi Hills, especially in Tindre sub-county, we have, just to name a few, cooperative societies like Kipsiele, Cooperative Society, Kapunyeria, Madam Speaker, Kapkulumben Cooperative Society, Kabrier Cooperative Society. We also have Sarwat and Kapsawas Cooperative Society in Aldai sub-county and across the entire of Nandi. What are the strategies along Kimuri Coffee Factory in Kairi village as the CS put in place to spur and ensure these coffee cooperative societies across the country are no longer going under or are being declared insolvent, and therefore they are able to support the growth and the flourishing of coffee growth and coffee business across, even in Kericho, where like for Tenan in Kericho, where we have many cooperative societies. For Tenan, I don't know why my teacher is excited today, Professor Tomo Jianda, and he just walked in. Madam Speaker, and therefore, what are the strategies, including, Kericho is my neighboring, like for Tenan area, Kipkelion area, farmers also grow a lot of cooperative coffee, even in Bungoma, in Kakamega. What are the strategies? What is the silver bullet? And I'm happy that the CS is a former governor, so he understands it is easy for him to manage both what the counties is doing in terms of what is happening in Kimuri and across the nation, so that we can continue, Madam Speaker. And therefore, that's my supplementary question, and to thank him for supporting Senator Bondi Kalwale for governor of Kakamega County. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Charadik. Senator Madago Jackson, are you doing campaign from the floor of the House? It's not allowed.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. And I think, let me congratulate Cherargei for recognizing that the former governors can help current senators to become governors. Honorable Speaker, I just want to ask the CS, just alongside that supplementary question of Kimuri Coffee Factory, that part of the challenges that has been cited is farmers having to go very long distance to take their produce to the next factory, Honorable Speaker. I wanted to know what the Cabinet Secretary is doing to make sure that the services of the Coffee Research Institute, which is a very important organization towards coffee productivity and quality, what is he doing to make sure that those services are available in other parts of the country, particularly the western part of Kenya? And when we talk of western part of Kenya, it's the whole of former Western Province, the whole of the Rift Valley and Nyanza, where coffee now is being grown as a very serious commercial crop, so that these services can be available and productivity can be increased, and we can see also an increase of new factories in the region. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Senator Madego. Senator Professor Tom Odhiambo Ojienda, SC.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, my supplementary question addressed to the CS cooperatives is specific to some of the questions that have been sought on the measures that the ministry is doing, not only to enhance the functions of cooperatives in the Nyanza region, but particularly the efforts that your ministry is making to also encourage coffee growing in areas such as Nyakach, Moroni, which is part of the zone that extends from Fortenan down to the areas where we know that coffee grows, and whether you have put any funds into that effort. CS, thank you.
Honorable CS, you can take up those questions now.
Madam Speaker, I want to thank members for those questions. Those questions are very, very important for the sector. And in the first question, by Bonnie Hadwale on governance. Madam Speaker, honorable members, the issue of governance, I think I've really expanded on it. One is that there is already the cooperative bill before you, before this Senate. This cooperative bill has already been passed by the National Assembly. As soon as you deal with this, you will have sorted 70% of the problems that we have in governance. So if you can take it in view of your concerns, then it will help us as a country move forward. The issue of the Cooperative College, Cooperative University of Kenya still has a mandate within its objective to support the cooperative sector, because it is a child, it came out of, it is born out of the cooperative movement. So one of its major objectives is to build capacity within the cooperative movement, even to be the center of keeping all data on cooperative movement. So if you wanted anything to do with the cooperatives, you go to the university, college of university, cooperative university, and you'll get all the documentation you want on the cooperative movement in Kenya. It is still doing that particular service, although it's not prominent. When I came in, I've engaged the management of the cooperative university, and I've told them now to come out and make sure that on the issue of governance, since we have mwongozo for parastatals, we must also have mwongozo for cooperatives, because now cooperative movement has become big with over 30,000 cooperative societies in the country. As mentioned, Madam Speaker, we have come up with a revitalization strategy to revive coffee cooperatives, at the same time revive the growing of coffee. And you remember when the president was addressing the last when addressing the parliament last time, he committed himself to making sure that by 2028, 2029, the production of coffee will have increased from the current 51,000 metric tons to 150,000 metric tons. As a ministry, we have taken the responsibility of making sure that this presidential promise is achieved. And that's why we came up with the revitalization strategy, and the president at the moment has committed to provide 500 million Kenya shillings between now and June of this year to start that exercise. Through that, cooperatives like Story that you have mentioned, Honorable Kalwale, will benefit from those particular funds. And I have already talked to few members of parliament, including Bonnie Halwale, about the importance of embracing coffee farming in this country, because at the moment, Madam Speaker, we are now, coffee is fetching the highest prices since the last 10 years. It is now fetching, farmers used to get 50 shillings per kilo of cherry, per kilo of cherry. Now the average is about 114 at the moment. It has never happened. Yeah? Because there is a big shortage of coffee. Countries like China have now embraced consumption of coffee. So Kenyans should take this particular opportunity and make sure that we grow coffee. However, as mentioned by Senator Mwanzo, is that as a ministry, we have not managed to get proper budget. We have presented a budget of about 4 billion Kenya shillings in order to make sure that production.
Senator Morango, what's your point of clarification?
Asante mstahiki Spika. Waziri, sijui kama unajua kwamba katika Bungoma, Cheskaki na Cheptais mwaka huu wamepata shilingi 21 tu kwa kilo ya kahawa. Kwa sababu nimesikia ukisema kwamba wakulima sasa wanapata kuanzia shilingi 100 kwenda juu. Hawa katika Bungoma kahawa yao kilo moja imetoka shilingi 21 tu, waziri. Kwa hivyo hapo si kweli. Kuna wakulima bado hawajaweza kunufaika na jitihada ambazo mnafanya kama serikali ama ukiwa waziri kupata pesa nzuri katika kahawa.
Madam Speaker, I've yet to get the evidence of what the senator is saying, because my statistics are from the Nairobi Coffee Exchange. That's where we get our statistics. And you see, in coffee farming, farmers are free to sell to whoever. They are not compelled to come to Nairobi Coffee Exchange. There is a parallel marketing. You can sell yourself. But there are, of course, middlemen who go to farmers, and sometimes farmers need money quickly. They buy cheaply and transport the same coffee to come and sell at the Nairobi Coffee Exchange to make a kill. So I will advise the senator that the farmers should avoid selling coffee to the middlemen. There are proper structures. There is a mill in...
Senator Bonnie Halwale, are you sure you want to have a point of order, because he's not a senator submitting from the floor of the House? What is your clarification?
Madam Speaker, this is very important. In Kirinyaga, farmers were paid as high as 151 shillings per kilo. In Mount Elgon and most parts of Western, it was between 20 and 30 shillings. Could the minister clarify, why is this differential? Why should farmers doing the same good job be paid 21 shillings in Western, and in Kirinyaga, they're paid 151 shillings?
Senator
And
Boni,
I was pursuing standing order number 105. That's why I was struggling on accuracy of what is being stated. But you have shown me, and the minister has had me. We are concerned because we have now, Minister, we've gone full throttle. We're telling farmers to plant. But 21 shillings against 151?
Senator Boni, he was in the middle of answering that same question from Senator Murango.
Yeah.
So maybe you allow him to finish the response he's giving.
Madam Speaker, I've yet to get that statistic said by Senator Halwale. I'm yet to get that statistics. Yeah, me, I can prove my own statistics. There is no differential, but I've said clearly that in other regions, there are people who take advantage of farmers, and they go to the farmers straight, buy the coffee from them, the cherry from them, and process the same cherry and bring it to Nairobi Coffee Exchange and sell at a kill. And that's why I want to advise the two members of parliament that this is now an education to those farmers. Tell the farmers there is a cherry fund. So there is no need for them being in a hurry. As soon as you have your cherry, there is a fund already, you make an application from any cooperative bank, any branch of cooperative bank. You fill the form, it is proved that the cherry is with you, and you are able to be paid a minimum of 50 shillings per cherry as your coffee goes for milling and then goes for coffee auction. When it is auctioned, you are paid within 5 days. And this is part of the reforms that the Ruto government has undertaken. And within those 5 days, they will pay you minus the 50 that you will have received in advance. So I don't see how a farmer can accept to sell the coffee at 30 shillings when already there is a cherry fund that can give 50 shillings. I don't believe that, Madam Speaker. Do I continue, Madam Speaker?
Let's proceed on. You're doing well. Proceed
Yes, thank you very much. So, Madam Speaker, the issue of churches that Dr. Marango, Senator, the issue of churches. You know, coffee, 75% of coffee farmers are smallholders. It's only 25% that are estate, the big boys. A small farmer with a half acre, 1 acre, cannot manage to have his or her cherry processed and taken to Nairobi for auction at the Nairobi Coffee Exchange. And that's why there is a cooperative movement. So you will find that these small farmers are within a small cooperative movement, so that the cooperative movement is able to provide these services to the small farmer. And the cooperative movement is not doing this service for free, because it's a movement, it is an establishment, it has staff, it has machinery. So those services should be paid for. Through the reforms, the government has said that the minimum that the coffee farmer can be paid is 85% of the selling price. The 15% will go to other service provider. Because a small coffee farmer cannot transport coffee from Bungoma, mill it, and then take it to Nairobi Coffee Exchange. So those providing other services, we are now limiting it, which has not happened before. It is now being limited through that legislation, although some people have gone to court to stop that. But that is the best way. That's how coffee farmers will benefit to the maximum. So those services paid pay, and it's 0 point something. It's not even 1%, it's not even, we have even now reduced payment to brokers. The CMA, we have reduced, we have slightly increased payment to the Nairobi Coffee Exchange because of the services they provide. Now, Senator Nandi, I want to congratulate Nandi. Nandi and Kericho now have come up, they have become among the top 10 highest producer of coffee in this country. And most of the farmers are moving from tea, because those areas have been known for tea, because there are more money in coffee. And let me state here categorically that coffee is grown in 33 counties. And the coffee can grow anywhere. Leave this, belief that coffee can only grow in a particular area. And we want to promote coffee to be grown in the entire country. And this is now our mission, that coffee should be grown, but because this is the only crop I can, at the moment, I feel that can change the economy of this country. And that's why we have reforms. And Madam Speaker, give me a chance next time I come and tell the honorable members here the reforms that this government has undertaken within the coffee sector that will make more people grow coffee. Thank you very much.
We have one more question from Senator Christo Kegeni Asige.
Thank you very much, Speaker. I think that I might have pressed the button erroneously, but I do wish to extend my welcome to the Honourable Minister. I think this is the first time that we've met here in Parliament, and I congratulate him as well on the work that him and his ministry are doing. I thank you.
Thank you, Senator Asige. Honourable CS, thank you for the answers you have offered for the questions that have been posed by the senators. Is there a clarification? Senator Mudavadi.
Yes, Honorable Chair. I didn't hear the CS respond on the issue of Coffee Research Institute.
Yes, CS, you can
take that. I remember very well, but I thought he has been a colleague of mine. We have been friends. I thought we could meet outside there, and then I expand on that particular issue. But since he needs an answer, Coffee Research Institute is under the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock, but in terms of collective responsibility, I will attempt to answer that particular question, because we are getting coffee seedlings from Coffee Research Institute. In fact, through the coffee revitalization strategy, we have engaged Coffee Research Institute. And what was happening, you remember when AFA was introduced in 2012, farming became an issue. And that's why you can see every sector within agriculture, sugarcane, they are now coming with their own legislation. Coffee, where we were back before 2012, coffee, they are also coming with their own legislation. And now this will stimulate Coffee Research Institute. Coffee Research Institute, since 2012, has actually been underfunded. And now we are saying now, using part of this money that we are being given, the budget of 500 million Kenya shillings, we want most of this money is going towards Coffee Research Institute to activate it, to produce more seedlings for our farmers. And in fact, they are now mobbing up all the seedlings in the country for this particular strategy. So that particular organization is being revived, and it's one of the strategy. I'm grateful to the management of Coffee Research under Dr. Kichuru that they are doing a good job to make sure that we revive the coffee sector.
Thank you very much, Honorable CS, and thank you for the insights you have offered on the coffee sector and the other question that was brought forth. And I believe you'll come back to the House to talk about the coffee reforms as you have proposed. I'm sure one of the senators, you pick up that proposition by the minister so that we push it to the next level. So right now, I want to release you together with your team, and you can leave at your own pleasure. Thank you very much, CS. Honorable Senators, we have the remaining agenda on the paper, from the order paper. Item number 9, agenda 9, 10, 11, 12. The movers are not in the House, so we will defer them to the next sitting of Senate. Honorable Senators, there being no other business on the order paper, the Senate stands adjourned until later today, Wednesday, 2nd April 2025 at 2:30 p.m. Thank you.